Isle 3 is the most unique isle in this challenge so far. It hosts 7 total bosses, 2 more than previous isles. Not only that, it's actually secretly easy. For the most part. So, in addition to beating all 7 bosses with only Whetstone, I want to see how quickly I can beat them. For Rumour Honeybottoms, I wanted her to be the first boss I beat in a single stream. I stream these, by the way. You can subscribe, I guess.
Here's a real high-class bout.
Phase 1's main issue is a mechanic present in the entire fight where platforms fall from the top of the screen to the bottom. We need to always make sure we can make it back to a platform without dashing, but these also change how we attack. Instead of jumping up and into the security bee, we'll jump down the platform and quickly press A again to land Whetstone, and either return to the same platform and quickly find another one, or angle our parry to another platform. We almost always want to be on the upper half of the screen to do this, and to ensure that we have room to jump down. The attacks are honestly less threatening than just bumping into the boss, but I should still probably mention them. The security bee will periodically place a bomb that launches spikes in every direction. They move further apart the longer they've been on screen, so I usually go to the other side of the screen to have as much wiggle room as possible. Sometimes the random platforms will lock you nearby the bomb, so I still make as much distance from the bomb as possible and try to duck or jump between the spikes as they're always launched in the same pattern. Worker bees constantly fly across the screen from either direction. They can hurt you, but at most usually just stop you from getting a hit on the boss while you avoid their obvious path. If you parry off of them, their briefcases get thrown into the air, but for some reason they don't damage you. I have no idea why, but I will take it. So overall, an easy phase where the most dangerous thing is safely getting a hit on the boss. Phase 2 is definitely a step up. We can get 2 or 3 hits when Rumour is on the left or right side of the screen before focusing completely on dodging her magic attacks. For the pink spear, just move in a circle around it however you can depending on the platforms and where you are in relation to it. Then there's the tetrahedron. Yeah, a triangular pyramid with 4 faces. Thanks, Google. Not you. This one just travels slowly towards where you were when it spawned and shoots 3 small bullets. I didn't even have a plan for this one, just dodge the bullets. Her attack when she's in the middle and shooting missiles is the hardest one to dodge for this phase. I recommend only attacking before she shoots any for some free damage and then focusing entirely on dodging the missiles. Otherwise, it's too difficult to keep track of where you'll land after Whetstone with the randomness of the platform spawning and how high the missiles travel. While focusing solely on dodging, you'll be able to jump between platforms and duck to dodge any missile. I also recommend counting hits on this phase as Rumour's last phase is the only difficult one and she has the most exploitable phase transition in the game going into it. Phase 2 takes 31 hits of Whetstone to beat, so stop hitting her once you have exactly 30 hits to leave her 1 away. Wait for her to be in the middle of the screen again and then attack her like you would normally during this while still focusing on dodging missiles. This lets us get as much overkill damage as we can since we hit her the most during this attack. She'll kindly let us get even more free damage while she switches phases to make her last one more manageable. We'll be dropping down platforms to get a hit again like phase 1, but we'll have much less wiggle room as she moves up quickly, meaning we won't always be able to return to the same platform we dropped down from. Her easy to avoid attack has her move to one side of the screen and use a huge buzzsaw that will force us to jump to the opposite side during. Her stupid dumb idiot attack that I hate attack launches fists from her what I think are now shoulders. The threat of them being fired at any time and us kind of being right next to them for them to immediately damage us forces us to stay between them and basically stay directly above Rumour's head the entire time. These home in on Cuphead, so we'll have to adjust our jumps to avoid any near us, either baiting them away or jumping between them. Her entire fight is pushing us into an aggressive playstyle, which is fine by me since I wanted to beat this in a single stream, and before even deciding on a victory quote, this happened. Yeah, I knew it. I was like, I'm going for it. Because I was gonna take damage to the fist anyway. You're a bee, yet you make me. Okay, I didn't think about it. What was the one? The rumor has it. You're on the bottom. That was Phantom Ace. That was a good one. I don't think I said it right. I don't think I said it right. What are the guys? I need the bee puns, quick, guys! Bee puns. That's what the buzz will be all about. Your defeat, guys, quick. Any bee puns? I can't believe you died this easily. I believed. Be gone and don't come back. Rumor Honeybottoms goes on the bottom tier for being beaten in a single straight. I didn't want to fight Brineybeard yet for reasons, so Sally Stageplay it is.
It's on!
Sally Stageplay's first phase is stupid easy. We just stand next to her as much as possible to keep landing hits on her. Her main attack has her jump into the air and spin diagonally down left or right. By standing still, we counter this insane attack of hers. Wow. This also avoids the heart she smooches at you. Sometimes she'll throw fans at where you're standing, so, and this is going to sound crazy, move left or right. The direction I pick is the one that keeps me closer to the center of the screen, so I never get cornered. The only attack to worry about is when she drops down from the top of the screen. By just running left or right, there's a chance she'll predict your movement and fall on top of you. So I recommend pausing to guarantee your dodge and to get to the next phase without taking any damage, which is great because phase 2 is much harder. It may be tough, but it's also one of the most fun phases in this entire challenge, as so much is happening on screen at a time that any phase 2 attempt will not be the same as another one. And if you're at all interested in trying this challenge, I'd recommend giving this phase a go. Sally's fans, her position, the baby throwing bottles, and the exploding toys all culminate into a chaos reminiscent of Cagney's phase 1 and Verbean Croak's phase 1. My best advice is to wait until the baby is throwing bottles so he doesn't surprise you while going for an attack. On that note, Sally's umbrella is a safe hit while she summons the mouse toys. While those are on the ceiling, your top priority is getting rid of them, so go under them if you're safe to bait them down. Things get more complicated when attacks overlap with Sally jumping at you or the fans getting in the way of your jump, so sometimes I run to the corner. Be careful not to get too close to the corner or the umbrella opening will block your jumps and become a guaranteed hit on you. And if you're ever close to one corner, go under or over Sally as soon as the opportunity arises to safely loop her around. If done right, you can just land between two toy mice while in the corner for some extra damage. Most time spent on this phase will be waiting for the right opportunity to strike and baiting attacks in certain spots, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad and again a lot of fun. The only other thing of note is to get rid of the leftover mice during the phase transition as quickly as possible so you can start damaging phase 3 right away. Our top priority this phase is to hit the meteor to open it as soon as possible. Otherwise, we won't always have time to hit it with Whetstone 3 times and avoid the big wave. During the lightning attack, stop attacking and solely focus on dodging. Even without dashing, walking up from one side of the screen to the other usually works, and worst case scenario is pretty much just turning around. Although in general, the worst case scenario is the meteor overlapping with the lightning, so you can't hit it in time to dodge the wave, but other than that, you should be able to get through this phase without taking damage. The final phase is another tough one and requires some weird and precise hits to safely land after parrying Sally. I suggest only attacking when her movement and the umbrella's movement align to make attacking as safe as possible. When she's moving left to right, you can parry her on her left side between her arm and her legs. Her hitbox is bigger than it looks, so immediately move away from her after landing the hit. We can also hit her feet when she's moving right to left, but I find that much harder to set up since the umbrella often gets in the way. Instead, I go for a hit while the umbrella is moving to the left and Sally is moving to the right as I jump over the umbrella, hit Sally from the left side, move left to avoid her hitbox, then just before landing, move to the right to land without touching the umbrella. It's still difficult, but I found it much more consistent. Technically, roses falling from the sky is an attack, but at most they'll zone us away from getting a hit every once in a while. And after only 2 streams, this happened. Yeah, I was like, that is it. I'd say break a leg, but I already broke your husband's. I didn't, though. I didn't do the secret phase. I just couldn't think of a quote. Exit stage, Cuphead. Looks like sorry, Sally, but the show must go on, so I gotta scram. What else? Now I'm open to suggestions. This is worse than that time I've watched Family Guy. Sally's Stageplay goes in the medium tier. Phases 2 and 4 are kind of tough, but everything else is easy. That was a 2-stream victory, but it's still early enough into the 2nd stream that we've got some time to check out the next boss on our list, Werner Werman.
This match will get red hot.
His first phase is pretty easy. He alternates between 2 attacks, a simple one where we either duck under or parry the gum to dodge, and the only real threat in this phase where he fires multiple bombs at random areas and intervals that explode into a row of fire once they touch the ground. You'll actually have to pay attention and maneuver depending on the pattern, sometimes going for short hops to refresh your only jump. You can hit him multiple times between his attacks, and even hit him and go over him during the charge attack for safety and damage. You should quickly be able to get to the next phase without taking any damage, which is good because it's the only hard one and is the reason I think this boss is even on Aisle 3 to begin with. Am I alone on that? With so much going on, we're only reacting to what's happening in the moment. To avoid the flamethrower, most of the time, we'll try to be on the opposite platform to Werner, so if he's on the top platform, we're on the bottom, and if he's on the bottom, we're on the top. The bottle caps are what will force us to break this pattern and adapt to the situation since they randomly pop out to attack. These can force us to switch platforms, but many can be ducked under. Sometimes an entire side of bottle caps pop out all at once, forcing us to switch sides, which you'll always need to be ready for so you don't get cornered. Whetstone helps us safely go over the boss and move to the other side while getting some damage. Basically, keep track of everything on screen as best as you can and keep moving until getting to the easy final phase. The cat will attack with its arm, which is only an attack by the technicality of it doing damage if you somehow manage to run into it. Then, planks will fall from the sky. They always follow the pattern of falling from left to right, then right to left, and repeat. They're only a problem while the ghosts throw their ball that splashes in 2 directions after being thrown at you and hitting the ground. The cat having a huge hurt box helps us avoid that by keeping us in the air longer, so after only an hour of attempts, this happened. I really wanted a 3 health victory. Oh man, I didn't even see a single victory quote. You suck. You're so bad. You're a rat, yet you didn't get a single stream, you moron. I thought you were supposed to be smart. He's dumb. He's dumb the whole time, didn't even get his own stream. Sorry, bye. See ya, Werner. Werner Werman gets his own tier, but doesn't get his own stream. It's time for the first run and gun intermission, and I'll start with Perilous Piers as it's actually easier than Rugged Ridge. Whetstone doesn't help with much, so I'll be going with Twin Hearts instead. We can jump over everything at the start, usually waiting between attacks and for openings to advance. Once we get to the crabs, we'll jump to the ground to give us more room to land on top of them safely. I jump over the lobster and quickly make it on top of the box to wait for it to shoot again. Once it moves left, we book it again and try to make it to the boat before it reaches us, but I usually take damage here and just use the invincibility to get to the boat instead. The reason we use Twin Hearts is we're guaranteed to take 2 damage while jumping to the octopus since the platforms are too far away from each other to make without dashing. Then we're at the most frantic part of the level, jumping between the shrimp and hoping for the best while it swims to victory. I got hit right before the end, so I was able to use the invincibility to make it to the end. Aisle 3 has gone suspiciously well so far. Anyway, time to fight Dr. Kahl.
Now go!
We can hit the top and middle pieces with no issues, but the bottom one unfortunately makes this fight impossible. I'll let me explain this instead of me. So there's a reason we're doing multiplayer. And it's this hit right here. You notice how, here, I'll try to show it with more health so I don't immediately die. Notice how I can't hit the boss on the bottom without taking damage. Yep. So you have to take damage, and you can't just like damage tank it either. Like just like spend 2 health to kill the bottom piece. It's not near enough. You need, I think it's 13 or 14 hits per part. So, unfortunately, we have to bend the rules a little to make this fight possible. At least that's what I would say if this wasn't my plan the whole time. If you go back to part 1 of the series and can stomach the terrible audio and intro that goes on for way too long, pause a minute and 45 seconds in and enhance the image. You'll just be able to see a secret message. It says, also 2-player mode is banned unless required. The only thing I need now is another player. And I know just who to ask. Yes, sir! With 2 players at 1 health, we can start an infinite chain. Have 1 player die, the other player revive them, the alive player die, and the recently revived player uses their temporary invincibility to revive the other player. And now that the invincibility frames are wearing out, they'll die again, so the other player can revive them while still invincible, and repeat for as long as you want. Which probably isn't very long because it's not fun to do. This is incredibly broken and trivializes most bosses, so I'll be limiting player 2's actions to only destroying the bottom piece. I considered being the player that had to do damage to the bottom piece, but that would force me to do the rest of the fight at 1 health. No. That means we'll be destroying the top and middle pieces first. To that end, I recommend restarting the fight and trying to stop right in front of the middle piece's hurt box. I had to reset most runs right away since the hitbox is huge, requiring a precise spot where we're close enough to actually land Whetstone, but not too close to just take damage from running into the boss. As long as you're in this spot though, destroying the 2 pieces is actually pretty safe, and we can just use a D-pad to go straight up or straight down. We can bait the laser attack to fire straight ahead whenever it's used, and the robot fired out of the chest doesn't fire electricity until after it passes behind us. The drones fired out of the bottom piece have a safe spot between the top and middle, so they mostly just slow us down from getting hits while nearby. I made sure to destroy the chest first, since the top piece being destroyed makes the robot move forward, which would hit us or force us to move backwards and greatly improve our chance of taking damage while hitting the chest. After the chest is destroyed, the top should only take a few more hits, and once destroyed, I go to the top right of the screen, which is completely safe from every possible attack right now. This is where Chicken Ninja spawns in and uses his invincibility frames to do as much damage as he can before dying, and every time he does, he'll float into me so I can revive him and repeat until the bottom piece is destroyed. I thank him for his help by removing him from the game after he dies to lower Dr. Kahl's health back to single player numbers. Or like, does Whetstone people are, it like doesn't change its damage in multiplayer? I don't remember. I'm removing from the game. I quickly move away from the top right of the screen as the robot gains a new attack for each piece destroyed, and the bottom piece's destruction causes that area to now fire missiles that home onto you, and well, we can't exactly safely Whetstone a bomb. Our only method of destroying these without taking damage is to have a missile collide into another one. This is the hard part of the first phase, as all of the attacks are much more difficult to dodge and we don't have any safe spots anymore. The only upside is that the heart we have to damage now has a smaller hitbox, so we can safely attack it as long as a bolt isn't fired directly into our face. I always try to stay close and go for hits between bolt attacks as long as the missile isn't currently on screen, the magnet isn't active, and the arm attack isn't happening. When a missile is fired, just circle around it until another one is launched, and then we'll circle around both of them to try to move in ways to bait them into crashing into each other. While the arms are extending, I prefer to stay in the bottom left away from everything, which is often made more difficult by a missile being out at the same time, which we'll need to bait around with smaller circles and just kind of hope we can avoid the bolts and small balls the arms shoot out while retracting. Look, it's the best I've got. I don't fully understand the magnet, but what was working for me was trying to only get pulled all the way in once by moving towards it and then zooming away from it to confuse the missiles as much as possible, as staying near it or only adjusting slightly while it's up just cornered me between two attacks most of the time. We want to end this phase as soon as possible, so pause between every Whetstone parry to see how much damage we can get away with. The bolt fires in two main patterns, a higher and a lower one. The higher one lets us move straight down with the D-pad, and quickly move back up once the bolt passes us to get some more hits, and the lower one can often be moved around as long as a missile isn't on screen. This lets us move on to phase 2 pretty quickly, usually at 1, sometimes 2 health remaining. Thankfully, this one is pretty easy. The robot's head goes in a simple pattern of moving from left to right on the bottom of the screen, and then moves from right to left on the top of the screen. The same missiles from the first phase constantly get summoned from off screen, which can be dealt with the same way as before and more easily, as much less is happening on screen at a time. We can either hit from above the head while it's on the bottom of the screen or below it while it's on top. Both are equally easy to do. Just make sure the final hit happens while you're above the head on the bottom of the screen, as the phase transition has the head fall off screen and directly into you if you're attacking from below it. We also want to make sure that exactly one missile isn't left on screen during the phase transition, since no more gets summoned for the rest of the fight. Meaning the only way to get rid of it now is to take damage. And phase 3 has enough going on where we can't afford to add another variable to dodging attacks in the bullet hell phase where I brought an axe to a gunfight. Without shrinking, we don't have a consistent strategy for dodging while Dr. Kahl attacks, and then going in for a couple of hits, especially when this phase takes 90 Whetstone hits to beat. So it's back to all reliable and hiding behind the boss. This will let us have the highest uptime of damage, as we can attack while he is, with all the reliable, pause strats. We'll be pausing constantly and between every attack. We'll still only go for attacks while we have a safe pattern that has the bullets far away from each other. Between attacks will be where we get our most consistent damage of about 5 hits each time. Pay attention to the electric balls that close in. They always alternate between starting at the top, bottom, etc. We'll try to stay in the middle, but whenever we're forced to move away from it, we'll need to know if it's safe to be near where they're about to spawn in and potentially hit us. And that's it. That's all the advice I have. It's nerve-wracking and takes way too long, but eventually I managed this. Oh, wow! Okay. 1 HP victory.
Oh! Let's go!
Yo, in a 2v2, chicken and crab beat robot and man. That's just science. So boom.
Let's go. I knew it was the run. I knew it.
I was like, I can't believe it was actually the 1 HP attempt, because I was like, you know what? The heart phase is the one I actually like the least, so I'll just keep it and then immediately win. Dr. Kahl goes to hard tier. He's not actually that bad with pause strats, but putting him any lower would not be right. And hey, that was early enough into the stream that me and Chick Ninja wanted to take a look at what Brineybeard's fight would look like. It's impossible.
A brawl is surely brewing.
Yeah, like actually this time. And 2 players or the Band Divine Relic can't fix this one either. Unfortunately, Brineybeard has an invisible wall in front of him that prevents us from getting close enough for Whetstone to parry him. I want to clarify that height isn't the issue. We'll be taking advantage of a cool trick later with 2-player mode, where a revived ghost gets a free extra jump when they revive, so Whetstone can reach greater heights, but this invisible wall is too wide. Even if you could somehow get over this wall with enough height, Brineybeard's last phase requires the ship's tonsil to take damage, and it's further back and protected inside the ship. I've seen 2 very common misconceptions that have tricked viewers into thinking Brineybeard can take damage from Whetstone. The most common one is that they're as close to Brineybeard as possible and then parry, but the parry actually hits the barrel behind Cuphead instead of Brineybeard. And in case you were wondering, that doesn't actually count as damaging the boss. If we look back at previous fights like Jimmy or even Dr. Kahl from like a minute ago, this happens because Whetstone parries in a circle around Cuphead all at once, so parrying something behind him is just as fast as parrying something in front of him. The other common misconception I've seen people comment is that Cuphead is parrying Brineybeard while he's shooting ink from the octopus, but that's simply them parrying the pink ink, so case closed. Unfortunately, Whetstone just can't damage Brineybeard, making his fight impossible for this challenge. Without knowing what to do next, I asked all of you what internet myths would make this fight possible to beat. Here are some of my favorites. Since you have trouble hitting him, all you need is the axe accuracy item from Pokemon. Brineybeard knows Cuphead's straw size and used that fact to its advantage, thus showing Brineybeard is straw shaming Cuphead. I don't know how this one even helps, but I'll try it. Go to the far left of the world map on Inkwell Isle 1 near where Cuphead and Mugman's house is, and you'll see the island with the lighthouse.
Normally, the island with the lighthouse on it isn't reachable, but if you set your computer's time to 5:18 on November 22nd, corresponding to Blackbeard's death date on November 22nd, 1718, the lightnet will be visible. If you wait then for 6 minutes in the
First,
spot,
you must talk to the NPC that changes the music of Inkwell Isles to be piano. You then must make sure you're playing as Mugman. I'm not doing this one. Equip both the Astral Cookie and Whetstone to access the double jump into dash parry to hit Brineybeard. In order to hit Brineybeard with Whetstone, you need to hit the barrel 100 times in one attempt to turn it into a platform. Joke's on you, I already tested that and it didn't work. In order to hit him with Whetstone, you need to cheat. Mod the game. Somehow, none of these actually worked. So if you consider the challenge lost, I understand, but it wouldn't be fun to just skip the fight, so GameBoy4784 made a mod for me that moves Brineybeard and the tonsil forward, allowing Whetstone to damage every phase. And the sad part is the entire fight would be so easy if it weren't so impossible. Brineybeard's main gimmick is to gain more attacks at certain thresholds of damage taken, similar to how phases usually cause the boss to change their appearance and attacks entirely. The most difficult attacks that get added are the ship's cannon and the dogfish that jump in from the water and move across the screen. These 2 attacks are the only really scary ones, and only when something else on screen is taking away your focus, like dodging the barrel or jumping between the octopus ink. The only important tip is to control when the barrel falls, as it has a cooldown before slamming down again. I usually just make it fall down as soon as it can to focus on dodging the other attacks. We can also use Whetstone's extra airtime to avoid the cannons more easily while we're near the ship, and even parry off of the barrel for extra safety. But everything else is pretty easy. I mean, the squid doesn't even do damage. Is it stupid? The only real issue is the last phase where we have to hit the tonsil, which again was also moved forward with the mod to make it whetstoneable. I don't know why I wrote that. I find the circling fire orbs difficult to dodge without the safety of a dash, so I try to stay as close to the boss as possible, since as long as you're in the air when a fire orb is spit out, you'll avoid it. We can duck under the laser, so the only issue with this strategy is the barrel. We'll ignore it whenever it isn't close to the ship, but if it's getting closer, we'll usually bait it down early so it doesn't prevent us from ducking. This might not sound too hard, and that's because it isn't, and this happened after only an hour. All you gotta do is get the barrel out of the way, though.
It's the same thing as like the 3-player challenge.
Yeah. We're all trying to do separate things.
Yeah. I would have... Both of the things that we are doing would have worked, but it just seems like what you did was...
Yeah, that was bad. I don't think that was the point. Got hit right before that.
Yeah.
Alright. I'll say the first part of the quote and you finish it.
What was the quote?
I don't know. Are you a pirate because? And then it's all you. Cause scurvy. You're overboard.
Alright, Chad, I'm leaving. I don't want to be a part of this anymore.
Wait, I can think of one. You're out of here.
You're out of here.
You're out of here. Captain Brineybeard is technically impossible, but factoring in the mod that lets me hit him, he can sit right next to Werner Werman since he doesn't get his own stream either. IL3's bizarre easy streak isn't over yet. Once again, my goal was to beat Cala Maria in a single stream.
You're up!
Her first phase is a bit tricky. We can get right in front of her face to attack, but we'll have to back up for basically every attack, especially when she goes underwater and can hit us during that animation. Her main attack has her spit 3 ghosts out that home onto you after a second and can easily be avoided by moving. Anywhere's fine, it's up to you. She'll swim underwater and bring a fish back up with her that has a different attack depending on the color. The red one shoots fire with large gaps between them that are almost never an issue, unless something else on screen gets in the way. The yellow fish is her hardest attack to dodge without shrinking here since they continuously home onto you. I like to circle around the first one until it goes off screen, making the second one easy to do the same. What really makes her attacks remotely an issue is the animal she summons being on screen at the same time. The seahorse follows us and spits water to force Cuphead to the top of the screen, but can be played around by moving left and right, so it has to catch up to us and allows us to dodge the ghosts. The pufferfish can be destroyed with a single Whetstone hit, making it one of the rare attacks. Whetstone is extremely useful for dodging. The worst animal is the turtle, since the bomb explodes and launches shrapnel in multiple directions, and makes any attack happening at the same time as that explosion much harder to dodge. My only tip is to try to stay as far away from the initial explosion as possible to have as much time and distance between the shrapnel as possible. This is a pretty long phase since we have to back up often, making it easy to make a mistake. But just keep your cool and play well and you should be able to get to phase 2 pretty often. Phase 2 is one of the craziest phases we've seen in this challenge. Projectiles everywhere from an infinite amount of enemies and Cala Maria freezing us in place. Just kidding, we're completely safe if we go behind her. She doesn't even have a hitbox during the phase transition, so getting behind her is literally free, and we can just hit her while we avoid every single thing going on during this phase. The only slight concern is getting in front of her again after we beat her up for a minute straight. You'll take damage if you go under or straight backwards, but fortunately her octopus hair's hitbox is small enough where we can go over her and move in front of her face. Once we're on the final phase proper, we'll avoid her petrifying attack yet again by just staying close enough to hit her since it's fired slightly further in front of her. That means we're only worried about colliding with the spiky pillars. We'll be pausing yet again, and in order to be ready to avoid them no matter where we are on the screen compared to them, I recommend staying in the middle of the screen so we can go up or down no matter the situation. And after only an hour of attempts, this happened.
Cala Maria? More like diarrhea. Boom, I forgot all the other ones again. She's just... That's the only one that stuck in my mind. Sorry about that. What was another one? I want some Cala Maria, so I killed ya. Cala Maria. What was another one? Quick, guys, we don't have much time. What's another victory quote?
Cala Maria was dangerously close to not getting her own stream, but she just makes it to easy tier. Before the game gives us another hard boss, let's do another run and gun. Rugged Ridge is unfortunately impossible single player without DLC charms or glitches as far as I can tell. We have the illusion of choice this time between Twin Hearts and Whetstone. Whetstone lets us parry over or kill the 2 mountain lions that we'd need to use Twin Hearts' 2 extra health to get past if we chose it instead. It's an easy path to the end where the real issues start. With Whetstone, we can save another heart by getting a perfectly timed parry on a pyro head to make it to the next platform. But during the Cyclops chase, there are 3 jumps that I believe are impossible to make without dashing, meaning we'll never have enough health to finish the level. So unfortunately, I needed 2-player mode to beat the level. We've been breezing through the Isle 3 bosses so far, but don't worry, I've saved the worst for last.
A great slam and then some.
Phantom Express's first and last phases are going to be a nightmare to beat. Of all bosses in this game not designed to beat Whetstone only, this boss was designed to be beaten Whetstone only the least. If you haven't figured it out yet, just wait for their first and only attack, a constant barrage of eyeballs blocking us from moving in to hit them with Whetstone, and while we're processing all that and standing around like an idiot, a pumpkin just moved the cart into the boss to damage us. The first thing we need to figure out is how to safely deal any damage. At first, I tried keeping the cart on the left of the screen to give me more room to dodge eyeballs and prevent the cart from moving into Blind Spectre's hitbox, but it was way too slow at dealing damage since I'd need to move the cart in the middle and then hit them like once before backing up again. Staying on this phase for way longer also made this strategy less safe than keeping the cart in the middle, so we'll choose to stay in the middle to hit Blind Spectre mostly between their attacks. This spot gives us less wiggle room for dodging the eyeballs, but thankfully they have low enough health for 1 Whetstone hit to kill them, and the height from the parry can help us dodge other eyeballs on our way down. After some practice, I realized that dodging the eyeballs wouldn't even be so bad if not for the constant time pressure of a pumpkin dropping the soap and not letting us parry it for the nearly guaranteed damage. I say nearly guaranteed because if Blind Spectre isn't attacking currently or with some lucky patterns, you can stay at the left edge of the cart to parry it back to the middle without taking damage. It may look scary, but I was able to safely get back to the middle pretty often and even got some of my best dodges of all time.
What? How did that not? I don't know how that didn't hit. Oh my god, that was the best dodge of all time. That was the best dodge I've ever done in my life.
Although most of those dodges were while Blind Spectre wasn't currently attacking or just fired their last eyeballs so I could safely parry them and the cart. Unless the Pez parries the cart at those times, we're forced to try to parry it before it moves the cart since we're less likely to take damage parrying the gum than while the cart moves right. The pumpkin coming from the left side of the screen is easy to parry. I usually do so after Whetstone parries me up after hitting an eyeball. Thankfully, the pumpkins don't have a hitbox, making this completely safe, and the additional height from the parry can help us with avoiding eyeballs on the way down. The pumpkin coming from the right side is the real issue. You may have forgotten this late into the series, but you're just supposed to shoot it. Since we can't do that, we have to get close to Blind Spectre, usually while they're attacking, to try to parry off of them and then into the soap. But again, you're supposed to shoot it, so of course Blind Spectre's hitbox on their arm is way bigger than it should be, making the parry much more precise than it looks. Ideally, we'll get lucky and parry off an eyeball at the perfect spot to parry the soap from there, or the pumpkin will be close enough to parry right before Blind Spectre raises their arm to attack. But that's the funny thing about luck, it usually doesn't happen. So we'll have to try to always be ready to parry the soap however we can and hope we don't take damage. We want to finish this phase as quickly as possible, so the pumpkin from the right spawns as few times as possible. We can get some free hits on Blind Spectre before their first attack. Once they start attacking, we'll usually be solely focused on dodging and using Whetstone defensively, as being in the air gives us better ways to dodge than staying on the ground. The most common ways I took damage dodging were parrying off of an eyeball and into another one extremely close to it, though it was still pretty rare. More often, the delay between parries would stop me from having enough time to parry soap directly above an eyeball I just parried off of. I tried to parry eyeballs in a way I could move left or right into the soap so I'd have enough time to parry both, although we're still usually taking damage due to the pumpkin on the right. If Blind Spectre shoots eyeballs with a big enough gap between them, we can sneak in a hit to speed this fight up even further. Most of our attacks will be when they aren't firing still, and we'll make sure to capitalize on every opportunity to attack to finally beat the boss. Get to the second phase, heck! The good news is that phase 2 and 3 are actually super easy. I only attack the conductor when the skull first pops out or after it swings from right to left 2 times and momentarily stays still before going back down. Or at least that's what I thought it did. So basically, the thing that really... Watch the skull move. It moves more than twice the first time, I think it's 3 times. But every other time, just watch the skull, it moves right to left specifically too. Right to left, it's right left, and then it goes down. What? Okay, this time it... Okay. How does that... Right, left. What? Now it's doing 3? Okay, now I'm confused, because before it was doing 2, because I had a pattern going. Turns out, this phase has a bizarre subtlety where the conductor's skull will move right to left 3 times instead of 2 until he takes damage, and then for the rest of the phase, will only move right to left 2 times. This is the weirdest thing I've learned from doing this challenge. I make sure to attack from the left of the conductor since it gives me a bit more margin for error, allowing me to attack without the skull colliding into me as soon as it starts moving. Other than that, I keep the cart on the left whenever possible, but let the soap move the cart to play it safe. We can duck under the vaults to avoid the soap. The only danger we're ever in is when the hands are about to slam down, and letting the soap move the cart would take too long, so we'll parry the vault instead and quickly move into a safe spot. Phase 3 is easiest with both lollipop ghouls alive. While the cart is under one, we're safe from their lightning attack if we hug the wall. Ghosts are constantly being summoned, which can be killed again with one parry. They don't pose much of a threat unless their hurt box overlaps with a lollipop ghoul and I hit the ghoul instead of the ghost with Whetstone. So I try to parry them while the lollipop ghoul moves up. We also need to make sure we don't parry them while they're above a vault so we don't move the cart with their drop pink skull, which could potentially get us hit by lightning. After the first ghoul dies, I wait to move the cart until after the other ghoul attacks, and then only move it with a pink skull of a ghost to kill 2 birds with 1 axe. Once the cart is in the middle, I parry it myself to hug the other corner of the screen. We'll have less chances to get damage and to kill the ghosts, since while 2 ghouls were alive, the opposite one firing would never reach us, and allowed us to hit the other ghoul and ghost for free. But just prioritize killing the ghost over damaging the ghoul, and eventually it'll fall too, finally getting us to the last phase. Unfortunately, this phase is impossible in single player since the heart that we need to damage is too high up to hit with Whetstone. I know someone's going to comment that I should parry the tail and then hit the heart with Whetstone, but remember, Whetstone can only be the first parry, so that doesn't work. I'm gonna need some help. And I know just who to ask.
Yeah.
Hey man, wanna help me fight Phantom Express and Cuphead?
Yeah, sure.
With another player, my initial plan was to die to an attack, have Sam revive me, and the free extra jump a revived player gets, as well as their ghost moving up while dead, would give me enough height to land Whetstone on the heart. Although that would technically work, it ended up being not that good, so we tried taking advantage of a weird quirk with falling off the cart. In this game, whenever you fall off the map or are somewhere you're not supposed to stay, the game damages you and sends you far up into the air. So our plan was to have me die, Sam revive me and parry the tail, Sam die, me revive Sam, and both land back onto the cart to refresh Whetstone, then finally, once the heart is in a good spot, fall off of the cart and use the bounce from touching the ground to reach the heart and hit it. We need to do this quickly before invincibility runs out. Our top priority is staying alive, since dropping player 2 out and them rejoining is still banned. So we kept the cart to the left, meaning only the pumpkin coming from the right side of the screen could parry the cart with soap. My job was to parry the soap whenever I could to keep the cart still. Before going for an attack, we needed to make sure the bone attack wouldn't kill Sam before he could revive me, and only have me die once the cart starts moving from the left side of the screen to the middle, so the heart would be in the right spot to hit. This combination made it so most of the time spent on this phase was waiting. The most dangerous part of this phase is right after we attack the heart, since while exposed, it rains down fire in addition to everything else going on. Sam prioritizes parrying the soap if he can't hit both the heart and it to keep the cart still, as my invincibility is just wearing off, and dying in the air to fire could cause me to fly off the map before Sam can revive me. After a nerve-wracking 15 minutes, we finally had this happen.
Right to Whetstone. I couldn't even Whetstone there, so I was just incredibly dumb.
It's all fine. I also pulled the dumb maneuver.
Yeah, because I'm just like, oh, I just want it to be over.
I would like it to be over too. This one's good.
Yeah,
Nice.
speaking of.
Nice.
What was the one? Barely even a sample of our power and incorporate train somewhere. We'll work on that.
Yeah, we're working on it.
We're working on it. Quick, someone
Yeah, we need
incorporate
train.
train. Even with all your training, you're barely a sample of our power. There you go.
Ooh, that's pretty.
There you
good.
go.
That's pretty huge.
You stood a ghost of a chance. Let's go.
Man.
And
That
who was
wasn't that bad
closest
at
to
all.
who was closest to the time? Let's find out.
I don't remember what I said.
I think we
I said
we
7
changed it
minutes
to
like an
late.
idiot.
We changed it to like
Yeah.
I think we both changed it to like 15 something. Holy.
We barely
Oh,
trained, but that's
man.
actually true.
That's actually true. We trained even longer than I planned on. Oh my god, we were wrong.
Wait, what
chat.
in the world? I did not realize we were there for those. So
Yeah, I didn't
long.
realize.
9 minutes and 36 seconds. You're
24
so wrong.
minutes and 44 seconds. There you go, chat.
Ooh.
There you go. Everyone thanks Sample for helping me with that.
Oh, obviously. Why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't
It was a
you?
fantastic time. That was pretty fun, actually. I
Yeah,
liked
it's fun. Oh my god, Magic, thank you so much for the $100 donation!
What the heck?
Oh my god, easy peasy indeed. Phantom Express belongs with Grim and Beppy, in Inkwell Hell. Even though they're the easiest of the three, it still surprises me that I was able to beat Phase 1. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in seeing me do this live, make sure to subscribe and whetstone that bell, since I'll start attempting Inkwell Hell pretty soon after this video. Thanks Chicken Ninja and Sample for helping me with Dr. Kahl and Phantom Express. Links to their channels will be here too.